In a vast and distant country that stretched from Persia to India and China, the king of these countries was a just king. The country prospered during his reign, and he won the hearts of the people. This king did not have many children, so he had only 2 sons. The eldest son was Shahrayar, and the youngest was called Shah Zaman. Very much for each other, and the 2 sons grew up in a good environment and received a good education. The elder brother, Shahrayar, ruled the country after his father's death and made his younger brother rule over the Persian countries. The 2 countries continued for 20 years, and during these 20 years, both countries enjoyed stability, security, and prosperity. One day, the elder brother Shahrayar's desire for his younger brother increased, so he sent him a message inviting him to visit him as soon as possible. Indeed, the little king accepted his brother's invitation, and King Shahrayar began to prepare a grand and enormous ceremony to receive his brother into his kingdom, and the reception was grand, worthy of a king like his brother. After completing the preparations, King Shah Zaman went out to go to his brother's kingdom. Halfway through, he remembered that he had forgotten something in his palace, so he went back to get it himself. Shah Zaman was surprised that his wife was cheating on him with one of the palace slaves. Shah Zaman could not bear to see this spectacle, so he raised his sword and beheaded his wife and the slave's head, and he quickly left his palace to complete the ceremony. During the stay of King Shah Zaman hosting his brother, King Shahrayar noticed that his brother was abstaining from eating and drinking, so he thought that he was missing his wife and his kingdom, and King Shahrayar began to offer him attempts to get him out of this situation, asking him to go fishing for some fun or to travel somewhere else. But King Shah Zaman refused and stayed in the palace. King Shah Zaman remained sad for a while because of what had happened to him, and while he was sitting in the garden of his brother's palace, he saw his brother's wife cheating on him with a slave from the palace. King Shah Zaman also became mad because of what he saw and decided to tell his brother, King Shahrayar. When King Shahrayar learned about this, he killed his wife and the slave on the spot. Shahrayar hated all women because of what he saw of his wife and his brother's wife, and he started to think that all women were traitors. So he decided to take revenge on all women, so he would marry the girl and kill her the next day. And he stayed like this for a long time, until one day he could not find any girls to marry, because the girls, they heard about his injustice and arrogance and decided to flee from him and his kingdom, fearing for their lives. Shahrayar did not find any woman to marry except the vizier's eldest daughter, Scheherazade. So King Shahrayar asked her to marry, but her father only accepted this request. The wedding night came, and Scheherazade was very scared because it might be her last day. And she asked Shahrayar to accept the last wish she had asked for in her life. Shahrayar accepted this wish. This wish was to tell stories to the king. So Scheherazade started telling stories, and the king kept listening to the stories with all his senses. When the time was late, Scheherazade said that she would continue telling the story later, so the king agreed to this. And so Scheherazade started telling 1,000 stories in 1,000 nights. And after all this, stories. King Shahrayar fell in love with her and had a son with her. Queen Scheherazade was very good at telling stories, and the stories would intertwine with each other. She would finish one, start another, and finish the end of them the next night. This is what attracted the king to her and made him fall in love with her. And he saw her beautiful side, Through these stories, Scheherazade gave Shahrayar the opportunity to know her well and fall in love with her. What distinguished Scheherazade's stories from others was that they were diverse. So the king did not get bored of her stories and did not execute her the next day. These diverse stories were about magicians and sorcerers, including romantic, comical, and imaginative stories, distant and legendary places. At the end of all these stories, Scheherazade managed to survive and conquer the heart of King Shahrayar. Intelligence in solving certain problems helps you overcome the problem, as Scheherazade did in the story. If a person meets bad people in his life, this should not be generalized to the rest of humanity. Human beings are different. Some of them are traitors, and some are sincere and loyal.